Hello everyone, welcome to the sessions of programming in Python. All this while we have covered different topics like functions, decision making, lists, dictionaries, exception handling. Today's session mainly focuses on the concept modules. So module is it's you can say it's like a style of programming in Python, wherein you create libraries and you import those libraries and you use it. It's like a modular way of writing your codes. If you think these technical jargons are very confusing for you, then let's try to break it down and try to understand in a more simpler way. Suppose I have a file A. Okay, suppose this is a Python file, file a.py, and similarly I have another file b.py. Okay, uh, to let's do the hands-on at the same time. Let me create one Python file. So I will change the extension, that is maybe I can create here file A. It's not text file, it has to be .py file. Okay, yep, so I created one file. Okay, and in the same way I'm going to create another file, that is file B. Okay, so it's file A and file B you have. Let me open both of them in an IDE. So once you create the Python file, you can edit them in any editor, could be a Notepad++ or Notepad. I would prefer to edit it in a PyCharm. Alright, so I have file A and file B. Now, all this while you would have seen that if I have to use a function, for example, if I'm creating a function here, define calculate average, okay, or maybe calculate sum, and I have two parameters here, x comma y, and this function returns the sum of both of them. If I have to use this function here, the definition is also existing in the same place, right? So if I run this, it is going to give me a response as 15, because the sum of 5 and 10 is 15. Now, why did it give me 15? Because I am calling this function which is defined in the same place. And just like this function, if I have defined multiplication and I call that multiplication function, then you would get okay, I think I should be changing the symbol here. Yep, you get 50 as a response, isn't it? Now it's very straightforward. You have those functions at the same place. You have defined them prior to their usage, and when you call those functions, Python was already aware that such functions already exist, and you were able to jump to those functions and return back with a computed value, isn't it? But if I take away these functions, will it still work? No, it won't, because it's going to throw an error that uh, it's going to throw an error that it is not defined, right? So let me clear all the outputs. If I run this here, okay, I think I'll have to reset the kernel. Yep. So at the moment you can see I have not defined these functions and I'm still calling this function. If I run this, it is going to throw an error that cal sum is not defined. Okay. Now why such an error is coming? Because they are indeed not defined. But sometimes what may happen is we may prefer, what if I have written all my functions definition in a different file? For example, I have defined them in file A. Such a case may occur when two people are working on a same project simultaneously. So you might be writing a part of code while your colleague might be writing a different, he might be developing the functions. You both cannot work on a same script, right? So what you have decided is you have started defining all the function in one file, that is file A. But if you have to use those definitions in file B, in a different file, so here if I take say data 1, if I have, say this is 50 and I have data 2 as 100, these two variables which I'm defining in file B, I want to do addition of those functions, addition of these two data. And if I have to do the multiplication of these two data, what do? I need those functions, right? But those functions are not present in the same file, rather they are present in a separate file. And I have to use those functions. So what I'm going to do is I will have to utilize those functions from that file. But how do I get started? I will get started by writing import file A. I'm going to import that file, okay? Remember that if this file which you have created, this external file which you have created and defined your function, this external file is called as module or a library. So this module you need to import. And mind you, you need to place both the files, all the files, relevant files that is required at the same location. You have to keep all of them at the same folder, okay? So once you have imported, now I know that my function is going to respond me back. Remember that if I'm calling this function and I'm passing on data 1 comma data 2, remember this is still giving me an error, right? Because it is still unresolved. Python is still not able to identify what function is this. So what you have to do is the syntax changes. There is a different way to call a function which is defined in other file. The first process is import that file, and then here when it is time to call it, you're going to write that file name the way you have imported it, file a dot calsum, which implies that from file a you're calling calculate sum, okay? And now if I try to print the response here, if I try to print this response, you will see that it is 150, okay? So this is how it is working all good. Now the second thing is, if I have to call the multiplication function also, then I will have to write in a similar fashion, file a dot multiplication, okay? Let me make this a different variable, okay? If I run this, you can see I am getting both the answers, isn't it? So this is how you use. Now one thing you have to remember is, since it is not just these functions you can define, but also you can also define here a variable. For example, I can say file a version, okay? Here if I write 1.5, then what I can do is, if I really need to access what is that version of that file, I can write here print file a dot file version, right? This is how I can also access a variable. When I was calling the function from the other file, I was writing file a dot function name followed by parenthesis, and within the parenthesis I would pass on the same amount of parameters, uh, as many parameters as this function is expecting, okay? But when it is time for me to call a variable, I am just going to write file a dot that variable name, and if I run this, you will see that it's giving me 1.5, and that is what the variable name I have defined. So this particular file which you have created, it is called as module. When you import a module, it is as good as you have imported all those definitions, whether it's a variable definition or it's a function definition or it's a class definition, anything you have imported here, and you can utilize those definition within the other file, okay? And always remember, if you have imported a file like this, anytime you access a variable name or you try to access the function, you will always have to precede it with file name dot syntax, okay? Whichever you have imported it with. But it is not necessary that if you're finding it lazy that you don't want to write this long name repeatedly and you wanted a short form, what you can do is, this is one style of importing and making use of it. Okay, the other style could be, so let me comment this out. The other way could be, you can write here import file A as F. Now what's happening here is I'm importing the file, but I'm importing it as an alias as in some short form, correct? So henceforth, if I have to write the same code here, something like this, it is not necessary for me to write file A, rather I am required to write only F. Okay, let me comment this out, uncomment this out, and let me run this, and you will see that it is still running fine, correct? So earlier you have seen that I was importing file A. This time you have seen that I have imported that file A as a alias, correct? And when I'm calling those functions, I can write just this short form. Okay. Now this is another style. So we have discussed two style, how you can always import another external file into your working file, and you can make use of this functions and variables which are defined in external file, right? Now that is one. There is another style of importing these functions and variables or whatever definition is present in external file. Like I can write here from, suppose there are too many files, there are too many functions. This is also function, this is also function, this is also variable. Too many things are present here, and not just multiplication. Even if I do division here and I write x divided by y, and similarly I write here subtraction and I write here x minus y. There are so many things which are present here in the external file. If I import this file A here, everything is going to get imported, right? Now that is not required. I don't want to waste my memory by having everything with myself. I don't want to import every variable. I don't want to import every functions. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this style of linking those definitions in this particular file. That is from file A, import maybe cal sum. Okay, cal sum. So what's happening here is from file A, remember this is just more or less like an English, from file A import cal sum. So this time what's happening, instead of everything getting imported, this time only calculator sum is getting imported. Okay, here. So if I bring in the same code again here, and remember when I am importing in this style, I don't have to write this particular syntax, this file name dot, this syntax you can get rid of. Okay, but if you can see here, since I imported just the calculator sum, Python is not able to identify what is calculator multiplication. Why? Because I am importing only one function. So although I am importing this file, but only one function is brought in here, so I can use only that. So let me comment this out. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. Okay, it is going to run all fine. You can see that it is running all fine. But if I keep that, it is going to give me an error because Python is not recognizing what this is, correct? It is not defined. And if you want to import this also, you can always put comma here, and I can call this, import this function also. So you can see that from file A import this and this. Now if I go to run, it is all running fine, correct? So what you're doing here is from file A, you're importing these. Okay, so one by one, if there are too many functions defined here, you can import selective functions. You can save memory. You need not bring in all the functions definitions here. Whatever is required, you can just bring in. Okay, and suppose you really like using this way of syntax or this way of calling functions, and you want to import everything in this style, but since there are too many things, you don't want to keep writing all the functions one by one. What you can do, rather listing all these functions names and variables here one by one, you can just put a star mark. This means from file A import everything. Okay, a star mark means everything. So everything is going to work. It is going to work as usual. Okay, so these are the three things which we learned, these three styles which we learned uh, towards modules creation and modules importing. Okay, so if we were to revise what a module is, Module is nothing but it's an external Python file which you create. You, if you want to contain your functions definition and certain variables definition in the external file, you can always maintain your functions differently. And in your main Python file, you can keep your code clean, neat, and only less so that it is more readable and understandable. And you can directly call the other file to make use of those functions which are defined there. And the way we always import these modules is this particular style. You always write import that file a. If you're using this, then you have to be mindful that you're using file name dot function name. Okay, in case you can also import it as an alias, something like this. And there, in that case, instead of writing the whole file name, you can just write the alias name. And in case you're importing it in this style from file A, then you need not write that dot operator. You can just write those function name directly. Okay, these modules or these external file, everyone, this is something that we have created, and that is why we have placed them in this particular folder, same folder. But why do we create such modules? It is because if someone else has to use my file, maybe I can name it, since it is calculator, I mean this, since it is calculator sub, calculator addition, etc. I can name it as calculator. I can give it a more meaningful name, calculator. Okay, .py. What I can do here is, since this is a calculator library or calculator module which has all the function that can do a similar job as calculator, and if I were to distribute it to others, I can easily do it, right? I can easily give away to my friends or colleagues or anyone across internet. They can always import this calculator and make use of those functions, correct? So this is why we have a modular way of writing the Python code. You always create modules for the useful functions, and once you have created the modules, you can share it across. You can maintain your code in more neat way. Okay, and remember, this is something which we have created, but if you consider the Python community world across, many organization, many freelancers, many people have already created lot many such uh, modules. There are almost 5 lakhs of modules which are already available in the Python server in the internet. There is some, you would have heard of something like pandas, numpy, scikit-learn, selenium, etc. What are these? These are called as framework, or in other words, these are called as modules or libraries. They have a specific job with them. Some do the image processing, some do the audio processing, some modules have the functions that can interact with the internet, some can do the data analytics, and a lot many things, machine learning, artificial intelligence. There are different modules which have been created by different people in organization, and they have been put on the internet. There is a Python server, okay, PyPy. You can always install them. For example, if I go here and say PyP, okay, I think it's not working at the moment, but let me just show you by another example. Say if I am going command, I'm launching the command prompt. Okay, I know that there is a Python installed in my computer. How do I check? I will write just Python. I know that, okay, there is a Python installed. Now I'm going to exit from here. Okay, yeah. So since I am in command prompt, I'll write pip install pandas. So what's happening here is, pandas is a module which I'm going to install through the Python server. So just like how I created these libraries, which is present locally, this is going to get installed from the server. Okay, if I hit enter, uh, it is going to, okay, the internet is not connected. Okay, requirements anyway satisfied. So, it is already installed in my computer, but if I connect to internet and if I try to uh, do this pip install, it can also take it from the server and install it. Okay, and when it install it, I can always import it like this, import pandas. Yeah, and not just pandas, I can import date time to deal with the date time. I can import OS to deal with my operating system. I can import matplotlib to plot the graphs and everything. So these are all the modules which other organization and other people have created, which you externally install. You download those files and you can directly use them the same way you created file A and you were using the functions stored in those modules. Same way you can also uh, pip install these modules, import them and use the useful functions which these modules have. Okay, so going further in the classes, we will see what pandas. So pandas is mainly a statistical data analytics library which we have. Datetime is to deal with the datetime. Matplotlib is to plot the graphs and do the beautiful visualizations. Okay, and you have NumPy also to do the numeric computations. So all these libraries help you do different jobs. There are more libraries to which is going to help you develop a website. There are libraries like these which is going to develop a app or a image processing or anything that you want to do in Python. So Python as a language, definitely we have learned functions, we have learned the decision making, we have learned the loops, different concepts. But these libraries which we just imported, these libraries help you do extra or the added functions they give you at your disposal to achieve more functionality than which is possible just by basic Python. All right. Yes. So I'll be sharing some notes as well as assignment questions. Please go through it for your better understanding of the whole concepts of modules as a concept in Python, and do better hands-on through those assignments. Okay.